Welcome, beloved chosen ones. Gather close, because today's message isn't just information, it's a spiritual wake-up call wrapped in divine fire. Expose them, Lord, not with thunder, but with a truth so piercing it echoes through every corner of their carefully constructed lies. Have you ever asked yourself what really happens when people build graves for you, but accidentally stand on quicksand themselves? What happens when they plot so confidently, thinking you're too naive to notice, too humble to respond, too quiet to defend? Chosen one, buckle up, because God didn't just reveal their schemes against you. He flipped the entire board, served them a divine dish, ice cold, calculated, and dripping with poetic justice. And here's a chilling fact for you. Psychological studies show that betrayals are rarely random. They are meticulously crafted, often by those who smile the brightest and sit closest to your heart. But when you're chosen, you're not hunted for what they see externally. You're targeted for the spiritual weight and glory you carry within. They thought you were blind, and God, in His unmatched strategy, let them believe it. They thought you were weak. God let them flex. Convinced they were invincible, they thought they had won. God let them celebrate. All the while knowing they were dancing on their own trapdoor. Now look at them. The masks have slipped off. The group chats they thought were fortresses have become prisons. Their private whispers have transformed into public screams. Judgment didn't come riding on a storm. It arrived cloaked in silence, striking with a precision they never saw coming. God didn't have to swing a sword. He simply let them expose themselves, piece by piece, word by word. And the best part, some of them are still scratching their heads, stuck in confusion, wondering how the elaborate plan they designed for your destruction detonated in their own hands like a sparkler exploding on New Year's Eve. Chosen one, don't flinch. Don't rush to explain. Don't even sip your tea too loud, because what's unfolding now is deeper than karma, louder than vengeance, and smoother than any scheme they dared to draft. God exposed it all. Every plot, every whisper, every hidden alliance laid bare under the spotlight of divine justice. And trust me, they never saw that subpoena from heaven coming. Before we dive deeper into this revelation, let me take a moment to say thank you to every one of you who has supported this mission through super thanks. Your generosity fuels this divine assignment, whether you choose to give or not. Know this: your presence, your spirit, and your engagement are priceless gifts to this community. We appreciate you deeply. If you feel the fire of this word stirring in your soul right now, do me a favor, type 999 in the comments. It's not just a number, it's a prophetic declaration that you are aligned, that you see clearly, and that you're ready to walk boldly in your assignment. No matter who gets exposed along the way, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and share this message with someone who needs to see that God doesn't just watch, He moves, He judges, and He vindicates. Now, get comfortable, take a deep breath, because today, we're not just talking about exposure, we're watching divine justice unfold in real time. Let's dive in. God's chosen ones. They had schemes for you. God exposed and dealt with them all. Number 1. God let them plot just enough to build their own trap. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why God didn't step in immediately when they started plotting against you? Why did it seem like he was silent while the rumors spread, while the traps were set, while the whispers filled dark rooms? Could it be that his silence wasn't absence, but strategy? They thought they had you pinned. They truly believed they had crafted the perfect blueprint for your downfall. They rehearsed lies, shared sly smirks behind your back, and believed they were orchestrating your end. But what they didn't realize is that God was not only watching, he was orchestrating a much greater symphony. Proverbs 26:27 says, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them." They thought they were digging a pit for you, but they didn't know they were building the very hole that would swallow them whole. Each lie they told became another shovel of dirt above their own head. Each act of manipulation was another brick in the prison they unknowingly constructed for themselves. Think of Joseph in the Bible, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery. They thought they had eliminated the dreamer, but God used their plot to elevate Joseph to a place of power that would eventually save them all. What if the very betrayal against you is designed to propel you higher than you ever imagined? Have you stopped to ask yourself what promotion is hidden inside your pain? Chosen one. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to scheme in return. God allowed them to expose themselves so completely that you only had to stand still and watch. As Exodus 14:14 reminds us, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You see, your silence wasn't weakness. It was a weapon. Every silent night you endured. Every tear you cried alone. Every moment you chose peace instead of revenge. God was writing a story of unstoppable victory on your behalf. Look at Nelson Mandela's life. Imprisoned for 27 years by those who plotted to break his spirit, Mandela emerged stronger, becoming a global symbol of resilience and forgiveness. Their plot became his platform. Can you see how their attempts to confine you might actually be creating your stage? Those who plotted believed they were 10 steps ahead. But what they forgot is that God doesn't play on the same board. He is the board. He is the architect, the referee, the ultimate strategist. Psalm 33:10 declares, "The Lord foils the plans of the nations. He thwarts the purposes of the peoples." While they celebrated temporary wins, God was quietly weaving their every move into a tapestry of their own defeat. Have you noticed how their lives are unraveling now? How their own words are returning to haunt them? Like echoes in a hollow cave, their smiles are faltering, their confidence shaking, and behind closed doors, they are consumed by a fear they cannot explain. Why? Because they sense that the divine hand is at work, that they are now actors in a script. They didn't write a script written by heaven itself. Consider the story of Haman in the book of Esther. He built gallows to hang Mordecai, but ended up being executed on them himself. Doesn't that make you wonder what gallows have your enemies built for you that they will soon hang from? How is God turning their curses into your coronation? Every time they tried to trip you, they only tangled themselves more. Every rumor became a rope around their own ambitions. You see, chosen one, it was never about defeating you. It was about revealing them. Their downfall is not simply punishment, but revelation. God wanted you, and everyone watching, to see the difference between darkness and light, between fake loyalty and true faithfulness. As you watch them unravel, remember Romans 12:19. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. You don't have to clap back, expose receipts, or engage in endless battles. Your stillness is your strength. Your composure is your crown. Chosen one. Your enemies thought they had the final word, but in reality, they only had the first move in a divine chess game. They could never win. The final move belongs to God, and He has already declared you victorious. As you stand today, realize you are not standing in defeat, but on the brink of a greater glory. A divine reversal, written before you were even born. Number 2. Their access wasn't a blessing. It was surveillance. Chosen one. Have you ever stopped to question why certain people were allowed so close to you? Why did they slip into your circle so easily? Smiling as if they cared, acting as if they were for you. Could it be that what you thought was friendship was actually divine surveillance? You see, they thought access to you was a gift, a privilege, a sign that they had your trust. But in truth, God permitted them close, not because of their loyalty, but to expose their true motives under your light. John Troy, Vine reveals, everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. The light you carry didn't just illuminate your path, it exposed their darkness. They thought they were manipulating you, controlling narratives behind the scenes. But God was watching every smirk, every side comment, every small betrayal. Their access was never about intimacy, it was about investigation. Look at the story of Judas Iscariot. He was one of the 12, close to Jesus, trusted with the money bag. But his presence wasn't a blessing, it was the stage for his own exposure. What if those who claimed to be your closest allies were only there to betray themselves? When Steve Jobs was betrayed by people within Apple, he was pushed out of the company he co-founded. But during that exile, he developed new innovations and ultimately returned stronger, transforming Apple into the giant we know today. Can you see how betrayal might actually be preparing your greatest comeback? Psalm 121:7 tells us, "The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life." Every underhanded tactic they used was logged in heaven's records. Every sneaky move was part of their own trial, judged not by you, but by God Himself. You thought you were being hurt. In truth, you were being protected and strengthened. As they lingered around you, thinking they were gathering intel to use against you, God was gathering evidence for your elevation. They believed they were writing your downfall, but each note they took became a line in their own judgment. Have you wondered why some people suddenly distance themselves from you, ghosting or turning cold? It's because they sense the divine audit is complete, and they can't stand in the presence of a truth they can no longer manipulate. Remember, chosen one, you were not losing allies, you were shedding liabilities. Just like a tree sheds dead branches in autumn, you were making room for new growth. They think you changed, but the truth is, you just outgrew their deception. Consider Princess Diana. She was surrounded by people who claimed to love her, but many plotted in secrecy. Yet, her authenticity and compassion exposed their coldness, and to this day, she remains beloved by millions while they are remembered for their schemes. Isaiah 34 keeps untalende 16 promises. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. The spiritual surveillance was never about punishing you, it was about preparing you for authority. You were never the victim. You were the vessel through which God revealed the hidden intentions of others. Now they are left speechless, embarrassed by their own reflections. Their words echo back to them, not as triumph, but as testimony against their own hearts. They will try to twist the story, to reclaim a narrative, but the truth shines too brightly to be dimmed. So, chosen one, are you ready to step into this season of revelation? Can you accept that God let them in, not to break you, but to build your discernment, to sharpen your spirit, and to protect your future? What they saw as an opportunity was actually a divine setup, and you are the living proof that God always has the final word. Number 3. God let the snake speak, so the mask would slip. Chosen one. Have you ever questioned why God allowed certain people to stay in your life long enough to hurt you? Why didn't He stop them at the first sign of betrayal? Why did He let them move so close, slither so silently, whisper so softly? Could it be that God wanted the snake to speak first to show you their true tongue before He intervened? The greatest exposure doesn't happen when enemies are still in disguise. It happens when they feel safe enough to reveal their real faces. They believed they had you wrapped around their finger. They thought they were so clever, sliding into your sacred space, acting loyal, feeding you poison, so slowly you wouldn't notice. But they forgot one crucial detail. You are covered by a God who hears every whisper, who reads every hidden motive. As Psalm 44:21 says, would not God have discovered it? Since He knows the secrets of the heart. God wasn't ignoring their actions, He was recording them, allowing them to get comfortable enough to reveal the fullness of their deceit. Look at the story of Samson and Delilah. Delilah played the role of lover while plotting his downfall, asking again and again for the source of his strength. Samson thought he could handle it until the day came when her true colors couldn't be hidden any longer. Do you see the parallel in your life? Who has been pressing you for secrets? Acting kind while plotting to cut your spiritual hair. God let them talk so you could finally see their intent. You began noticing the subtle digs, the sarcasm disguised as jokes, the passive-aggressive remarks. Have you ever asked yourself why you suddenly started catching what you used to ignore? That wasn't mere maturity, that was divine revelation. When God opens your eyes, no snake can remain hidden. They began hissing freely, thinking they were safe. But you heard every syllable with spiritual ears. You didn't imagine it. You weren't too sensitive. You were awakened. Maya Angelou once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. But chosen one, you're different. You believed, but your compassion delayed your action. Yet God knew this, and that's why He orchestrated events to push the snake out into the open. He knew you needed to see it clearly, so you'd never again question your intuition or divine guidance. This heartbreak you felt, it wasn't a punishment, it was a powerful awakening. As James 1-4 reminds us, let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Your pain wasn't wasted, it was a sharpening tool. You don't grow by being constantly shielded. You grow by encountering danger and recognizing it without losing your soul. Think about Oprah Winfrey, who faced betrayal from people she trusted deeply, friends who sold stories, insiders who leaked secrets. Those moments didn't destroy her. They refined her discernment and elevated her to protect her massive influence. Isn't it amazing how betrayal often births boundaries and boundaries birth blessings? Now they scramble. tossing out excuses. "I was joking. You misunderstood. You're overreacting." But chosen one, do you feel that steady flame inside you now? That is God confirming your discernment. You aren't crazy. You aren't bitter. You are awake. And that is their deepest fear, that you can now see through the layers they used to hide behind. God didn't need to strike them with lightning or send fire from heaven. He used something even more powerful: truth. As John 8:32 states, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Your freedom didn't come from revenge or exposure battles on social media. It came from seeing the unfiltered truth with your own eyes. Chosen one. The most terrifying thing for a deceiver is to be fully seen. That's why they tremble now. They don't fear you. They fear what you now know. They can't recover from being truly seen, because exposure isn't just about public humiliation, it's about spiritual defeat. Once the mask slips, there's no going back. Consider the story of Lance Armstrong. For years, he presented an image of strength and victory, inspiring millions. But when the truth about doping was revealed, the mask slipped permanently. His reputation never fully recovered because the world saw what lay beneath the polished surface. So ask yourself, what would you have missed if God removed the snake too soon? What strength would remain dormant if you hadn't faced the hiss and the bite? The answer is clear. You would still be asleep to dangers hidden in charm. But now, you're wide awake, standing stronger than ever, no longer susceptible to the serpent's tongue. Number 4. Their hidden hands were seen by the eyes that see all. Chosen one. Have you ever believed you were outnumbered? That the whispers and the closed-door meetings were stacking up against you? And you were alone in a dark corner fighting invisible enemies? But here's the divine truth. You were never outnumbered. You were outwatched, watched, and protected by the one who never sleeps. Psalm 121:4 says, "Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep." While they plotted, while they deleted messages and carefully curated fake kindness, God sat quietly, not as an observer, but as the ultimate archivist. Every text, every manipulated narrative, every alliance forged against you was recorded in a ledger that cannot be tampered with. Think of the Watergate scandal that toppled President Nixon. His team thought they had erased the evidence, destroyed the tapes, covered their tracks so well that no one would know. But the hidden hands were seen. The tapes resurfaced, and the world saw the truth. What was hidden in darkness always comes to light, under God's timing. They moved like puppeteers, convinced their strings were invisible, that their cleverness was enough to escape consequences. They confused human silence with divine blindness. But chosen one, you are under a surveillance system that no man can hack, God's eyes. As Hebrews 4:13 declares, nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must give account. So, consider Princess Diana once again, how she sensed there were hidden hands within the royal establishment working against her. Despite her public smiles, she felt the silent war. Eventually, those hands were revealed to the world, and her legacy shined even brighter, despite attempts to tarnish her. Doesn't that resonate with your own journey? Chosen one, they thought your blessings could be blocked by private alliances, but every attempt only further clarified your calling. They thought they could manipulate destiny, but destiny is not a door you can lock from the outside. The more they tried to control, the more they exposed themselves. Do you realize that while they were busy plotting your downfall, heaven was busy preparing your table? Psalm 23:5 says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." God didn't promise a private dinner, He promised a public feast. They had front row seats to your rise and didn't even realize they were invited to witness. Not sabotage. Think about Elon Musk. How many former colleagues tried to undermine him, to leak private plans or twist his narrative? Each time, the exposure only elevated his vision and cleared the path for even greater impact. What if every scheme against you is actually a stepping stone for your expansion? Now, chosen one, look around. Do you see the connections falling apart? The alliances crumbling? The sudden silence of those who once spoke so confidently? This is not a coincidence. This is divine choreography. Their hidden hands are now revealed under the spotlight of God's justice, and they have no rehearsed lines left to save them. They wanted stealth. They received spotlight. They wanted secrecy. They received exposure. God's justice doesn't require a courtroom. It is precise, public, and deeply personal. The ones who once whispered, "No one will ever know," are now the ones shouting excuses into an empty void. When you think about the countless plots that almost took you down, have you ever stopped to ask, why didn't they succeed? Because the one who called you sees beyond walls, beyond screens, beyond every hidden message and fake alliance. And when He decides to act, He does it with surgical accuracy, not driven by emotion, but by purpose. Not to shame you, but to strengthen you and showcase His faithfulness. So, chosen one, do not be afraid when exposure comes. Rejoice, because it means your destiny is too valuable to share with traitors. Your promise is too precious to be held by counterfeit hands. You were never fighting alone. You were simply being prepared for a moment where all would be revealed, and you would stand, vindicated and stronger than ever before. Number 5. They weren't fighting you. They were testing God's threshold. Chosen one. Have you ever paused to ask yourself, why did they choose you as their target? Why did they pick on you? A person who only wanted peace, who moved with integrity and carried kindness as your shield. Could it be that they mistook your gentleness for weakness? They believed they were simply messing with you, trying to break your spirit and dim your light. But they didn't realize they weren't fighting you at all. They were poking at the edges of God's patience. Isaiah 54:17 reminds us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." You see, every insult they hurled wasn't just a dart aimed at you. It was a hammer striking the patience of heaven. They were not just toying with a human, they were challenging the divine hedge God had placed around you. Think of David and Goliath. Goliath believed he was mocking a young shepherd boy, but in reality, he was mocking the God who anointed David. His arrogance became his downfall. Have you considered that the people who taunted you underestimated the divine force standing behind you? They measured how far they could push, twisting your words, sabotaging your plans, and smiling through their deceit. But chosen one, God let them push, not because He was absent, but because He was building their case file. Every time they crossed a line, heaven recorded it. Every cruel comment, every sly sabotage, every fake smile that hid a dagger, it was all ammunition for divine justice. They thought your silence was weakness, but as Exodus 14:14 declares, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." You didn't clap back. You didn't retaliate. You stood firm in your faith, even when misunderstood. This wasn't passivity, it was spiritual strategy. God was allowing them to build a rope long enough to hang themselves. Take Nelson Mandela as an example. For decades, he endured cruelty, imprisonment, and betrayal. His silence and forgiveness were seen as weakness, but they ultimately dismantled an entire system of oppression. What if your quiet endurance is part of a grander dismantling that God is orchestrating now? They feel it, that unexplainable resistance, the sudden closed doors, the friendships dissolving without warning. Have you noticed how opportunities are slipping through their fingers? How their influence is shrinking? How they're scrambling to control a narrative they can no longer hold? This is not random, it's divine consequence. Proverbs 16:18 tells us, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Their arrogance pushed them to challenge God's patience. They didn't just underestimate you, they underestimated the one who sent you. Look at Mike Tyson. Early in his career, many underestimated him, thought they could control or manipulate him. But every opponent who took him lightly met with swift, undeniable defeat. Similarly, your enemies misjudged the weight of the divine favor on your life. Chosen one, you weren't a random target, you were a divine boundary line. They weren't testing you, they were testing God's threshold. And when God moves, He doesn't negotiate, He doesn't send warnings twice. He ends things completely, with a finality that leaves no room for rebuttal. Now, they're left in chaos, grasping for explanations as to why their lives feel cursed, why blessings have dried up, why support systems have evaporated. But you know why? Because they pressed too far against something sacred. They confused your humility for helplessness. And now the spiritual backlash is unavoidable. Job 42:2 reminds us, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. Their attempts to derail you were ultimately attempts to derail God's purpose. And that is a battle no human can win. So, chosen one, stand firm. Don't seek revenge or gloat over their downfall. Your elevation is proof enough that God has settled the matter. When heaven responds, it does not engage in petty squabbles. It enforces divine verdicts that no man can reverse. Number 6. God turned their group chats into their guillotine. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered what happens in those private group chats where your name gets twisted and your character dissected like a hobby? Have you imagined the laughs they shared, the fake concern laced with sarcasm, the strategic lies typed out with a sense of power? They thought they were safe. They thought as long as they stayed behind screens, their words would remain hidden. But do you know that spiritual evidence is stronger than any screenshot? Luke 2:3 declares, what you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you have whispered in the ear in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the roofs. Every lol after a backstab, every emoji after a cruel sentence, it was all archived in the divine ledger. Take a look at the downfall of celebrities exposed by private leaks. Tiger Woods' affairs, for example. His text messages and private exchanges eventually came to light, costing him reputation and endorsements. What they thought was private entertainment turned into a public guillotine. Just like that. Chosen one. The same is happening in the spirit realm for those who schemed against you. They thought the group chat was their fortress, a safe space to vent and orchestrate your humiliation. But God allowed it to build. not because he was indifferent, but because he wanted their collapse to be poetic, undeniable, and absolute. Look at Julius Caesar's assassination plot. His friends conspired in secret, bonding over betrayal. But ultimately, that conspiracy tore Rome apart and immortalized Caesar as a martyr, while the conspirators died disgraced. What they thought was their advantage became the very blade that destroyed them. Now, those who once laughed at your pain are fighting each other. Their alliances have turned into battlegrounds. Have you noticed their sudden paranoia, their falling out, the leaks and rumors turning back on them? That's not drama, that's spiritual law in action. Galatians 6-7 warns, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." Their seeds of betrayal have blossomed into thorns, tearing through the fake friendships they cherished. Look at Britney Spears' conservatorship. Behind closed doors, people plotted to control her life and finances, thinking their manipulation would stay hidden, but eventually the truth erupted. And now those conspirators face shame and legal consequences. The group chats that felt like powerful war rooms are now echo chambers of regret and betrayal. They thought they were writing your downfall, but they were signing their own verdicts. The very keyboard they used as a weapon has become a sword slicing through their own stability. Psalm 7:15 states, "Whoever digs a hole and scoops it out falls into the pit they have made." The trap was never truly for you. God repurposed it to showcase their own collapse. Their spiritual courtroom has been called to session, and their words now testify against them. Chosen one. Can you see the poetic justice? Can you feel how God turned what they meant for harm into a stage for their exposure? They thought they could orchestrate your downfall in silence, but now they watch as their reputations crumble, their alliances fracture, and their peace evaporates. You didn't need to screenshot them or retaliate. You only had to remain still and allow divine law to unfold. This is not just karma, it is the hand of God moving precisely, transforming their group chat into a guillotine that severs their own schemes. Chosen one. Rejoice, not because they are falling, but because this exposure is proof of how fiercely God guards your destiny. You are covered so thoroughly that even in private, the battle was already won. This is your confirmation that no weapon formed against you will ever prosper, and that every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you will condemn. Number 7. They made you their obsession. Now God made you their lesson. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why certain people can't stop watching you? Why do they stalk your every move as if their survival depends on it? Why do they spend sleepless nights dissecting your posts, your victories, even your quiet moments? It wasn't admiration. It was obsession. An obsession so deep that they lost themselves in the process of trying to become you. Psalm 37:12-13 says, "The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them, but the Lord laughs at the wicked. For he knows their day is coming." They turned your life into their personal theater, watching every act, hoping to catch you stumbling. But chosen one, they didn't understand one key thing. When you carry divine favor, you can't be duplicated, dimmed, or destroyed. Think about Michael Jackson. He was imitated endlessly, from dance moves to outfits, yet no one could capture his essence. Imitators could learn the steps, but never the spirit. In the same way, your essence is divinely coded. It can't be cloned, only admired from a distance. They didn't want to learn from you. They wanted to replace you. They watched you not to grow, but to gather ammo, hoping to find a flaw to exploit. But every time they tried to pull you down, God used it to elevate you higher. Have you noticed that the more they plotted, the brighter your light shone? How is it possible you kept rising, despite the curses thrown your way? Because what God ordains, no human hand can overturn. Proverbs 26:27 declares, whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. The pit they dug with their gossip and envy has become their own tomb of restlessness. Their obsession turned into insomnia. They are haunted by your name echoing in their conscience. Look at Steve Jobs. His competitors obsessed over him, tried to sabotage him, and even stole his ideas. But while they focused on stopping him, he focused on innovating, and history immortalized him as a visionary, while they became footnotes in his story. Are your enemies writing your story for you, only to realize they've become minor characters in a narrative centered around your divine assignment, chosen one? They weren't inspired by you, they were tormented by your existence. They couldn't understand why you kept glowing through the storms, how your spirit remained unbroken. They thought they could copy your steps, but they didn't realize they couldn't steal your anointing. Now, their obsession has become their chain. The same energy they spent watching you is returning to them as confusion, chaos, and collapsed alliances. They're fighting ghosts, the ghost of your resilience, your unstoppable rise, your unwavering peace. Imagine Beyoncé, often attacked and dissected publicly, yet she stands unbothered, letting her excellence speak. Her very existence humbles her critics. Romans 12:19 teaches, do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. You didn't need to fight back. Your victories are your loudest response. You are the walking proof that God defends his chosen fiercely. Now, they can't escape the lesson. You are etched in their minds, not as a defeated rival, but as the unshakable force they underestimated. You didn't ask for this role. You didn't audition to become their obsession, but God turned their unhealthy fixation into a life-changing lesson for them, a permanent reminder that divine favor cannot be tampered with. Can you feel the shift? You no longer need to look over your shoulder. You no longer need to wonder about their whispers. You've graduated from their petty plots into a new dimension of favor and authority. Your name is now a silent sermon echoing in their spirits. Number 8. God let you play the fool so they'd reveal their true nature. Chosen one. Have you ever sat in silence, knowing someone was betraying you, and wondered, why am I not speaking up? Why am I letting this slide? You saw the signs. You felt the energy shift. But instead of reacting, you remained still. That wasn't ignorance. It was divine strategy. Ecclesiastes 3:7 tells us, a time to be silent and a time to speak. God coached you through those moments of apparent foolishness. They thought your quietness meant you were clueless, that they had the upper hand, but in reality, you were watching them hang themselves with every new lie, every fake compliment, every manipulative move. Remember when Serena Williams faced endless criticism for her style, her power, her presence? She didn't argue with every headline or clap back at every insult. She stayed focused on her game, and each win became a thunderous silence that spoke louder than words. Like Serena, you didn't fight with noise, you won with evidence. Your patience wasn't passivity. It was a trap set by heaven. God let them climb higher on their pedestal of arrogance, thinking they had outwitted you. But Proverbs 16:18 warns. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. They believed they had you cornered, not realizing they were stepping into their own exposure. Think of Jesus and Judas. Judas thought he was deceiving the Son of God for a bag of silver. But Christ's silence wasn't defeat. It was preparation for ultimate revelation and victory. You didn't lose by keeping quiet. You won by letting their own actions be their testimony. Bit by bit, the charm faded. The supportive smiles turned sour. The once sweet words became barbed daggers. You noticed, didn't you? Each forced laugh, each half-hearted praise. You felt the shift in their spirit before they ever confessed. And while they thought they were rising, they were actually being set up for a fall, so loud the echoes would ripple through every corner of their lives. Oprah Winfrey once said, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." You transformed every betrayal into discernment, every insult into insight. Your silence wasn't just a shield, it was a mirror reflecting their true intentions. They exposed themselves with their own pride, and now they are desperately trying to rewrite the story. But the ink has already dried, and their own mouths wrote their downfall. Isaiah 41:10 comforts us. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. God never left you unprotected. Your foolishness was his fortress around you. A strategy so divine that it confused every enemy tactic. Now, they scramble, blame-shifting, creating alternative narratives to protect their crumbling images. But their fall is no longer in your hands. It is a divine orchestration, loud and undeniable, turning their arrogance into a public warning for others. Chosen one, you didn't lose by being quiet. You won by allowing God to conduct the final act. Their downfall is not your victory dance, but a reminder that God is always in control, even when it looks like you're losing. Can you see now why God asked you to stay silent? Can you see how every insult became a brick in the tower of their own demise? Your patience wasn't a punishment, it was a promotion in disguise. You stood still and watched as their ego wrote a story that only heaven could finish. And now, you rise, unshaken, unbothered, unbroken, living proof that divine wisdom always prevails. Number 9. The ones who said I got you were the ones sent to test if you'd bow. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how some people entered your life declaring loyalty louder than anyone else? I got you, they said. You'll never have to go through this alone. It sounded like love, like divine support, like a safe place. But what if I told you that those words weren't a promise, they were a test? What if I told you that their kindness was actually a carefully camouflaged snare designed to see if your soul could be purchased? Isaiah 2:22 warns, stop trusting in mere humans who have but a breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem? They didn't come to strengthen your assignment, they came to negotiate it. They wanted to see if they could distract you from your divine mission, if they could tempt you to bow to them instead of standing firm with God. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. When offered comfort and escape in exchange for bowing to earthly rulers, he chose God, even if it meant facing death. Have you considered that every comforting offer you received wasn't about helping you? It was about pulling you away from your true spiritual authority. Their help wasn't pure. It came with silent contracts, strings, and unspoken expectations. They didn't want to empower you, they wanted to own you. When you refused to bend, when you stood strong, even as they dangled comfort in front of you, their masks slipped. Suddenly, the "I got you" turned into "I don't know you." The warmth turned to cold avoidance, the smiles to side eyes. Why? Because you didn't choose them over God. You didn't trade your crown for their crumbs. Matthew 6:24 reminds us, no one can serve two masters. You couldn't worship their ego while carrying your cross. You couldn't sacrifice your destiny for temporary applause. That's why you couldn't bow, even if part of you wanted to. Deep inside, your spirit knew you were being tested, not supported. Take Beyoncé as an example. Many around her claimed loyalty, but once she refused to be controlled or managed by their terms, they left. She stood firm, built her empire, and became untouchable. Just like her, your refusal to bow has preserved the divine blueprint on your life. They called your discernment ungratefulness. They painted your boundaries as arrogance. But the truth is, you didn't reject them. You rejected the spirit of manipulation that came cloaked as love. You saw past their words into the strings behind them, and that terrified them, because they knew that once you saw, they could no longer use you. Acts 5 tells the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who claimed to be helping, but were really testing God with deceit. When confronted, their true nature was revealed publicly, not privately. Likewise, your journey exposed their true heart condition, and they couldn't handle the mirror. Chosen one, their betrayal wasn't your loss. It was your liberation. You didn't lose support. You lost sabotage, disguised as help. Their departure wasn't abandonment. It was divine surgery, removing leeches from your destiny. They thought you needed them to rise. But now they watch in horror as God elevates you without their approval, without their resources, and without their empty promises. Romans 8:30 affirme, if God is for us, who can be against us? They were sent to test if you would compromise your crown for comfort. You didn't fold. You didn't sell out. You stood. And that's why God is now showcasing you as a living example of unwavering faith. So, chosen one, ask yourself, who offered help but expected worship in return? Who said, "I got you," but demanded you lose yourself to keep their affection? Rejoice, you passed the test. They failed. And now, your unwavering loyalty to God has become a rebuke to every manipulative scheme that tried to own you. Number 10. God delayed your vindication to make their fall public. Chosen one. Have you ever cried out in frustration? God, when will the truth come out? When will they stop lying about me? When will my name be cleared? You waited and waited, feeling like your silence was mistaken for guilt, your patience for weakness. But what if I told you that God's delay wasn't neglect, it was divine setup? Psalm 36:6 promises, He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. You see, chosen one, God doesn't do private vindications for public betrayals. He wanted the same audience that watched them mock you to witness them, eat their words. Think of Joseph, falsely accused and imprisoned. He waited years for vindication. But when God moved, Joseph didn't just get freed, He was promoted to second in command of Egypt. Have you considered that your delay isn't about proving your innocence to people? It's about establishing your divine promotion on a stage so large that even your enemies can't deny it. They thought your silence was weakness. They thought their lies had buried you for good. But what they didn't realize is that God was letting them build the stage for their own exposure. The higher they climbed in arrogance, the harder the fall would be. Their confidence grew loud. Their alliances felt unstoppable. And they celebrated prematurely, all while God stayed silent, letting them believe they had won. Psalm 23:5 reminds us, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Your vindication had to be a feast, not a snack. God doesn't just clear your name, He exalts it so undeniably that even your enemies become unintentional witnesses to His glory on your life. Look at Tiger Woods, betrayed by public opinion and personal failures. Many thought his career was over. But when he returned to win the Masters in 2019, it was a global, unforgettable vindication that silenced critics in real time. Your story is no different. The longer the wait, the louder the comeback. They tried to bury you with gossip, to drown you with slander, to erase your impact with lies. But chosen one, dirt doesn't bury seeds, it plants them. And God is now causing your hidden season to burst forth into undeniable growth. Have you noticed how their networks are crumbling? How their credibility is fading? How their alliances are turning into public brawls? That's not karma. That's divine justice in motion. Isaiah 54:17 declares again, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." You didn't need to respond, because your peace was the loudest defense. Your resilience was your rebuttal. And now, as their schemes fall apart, the very people they rallied against you are questioning them, walking away. And some are even apologizing to you quietly. Oprah Winfrey was publicly attacked and betrayed multiple times. But instead of retaliating, she kept building. Today, those who once doubted her stand in line to praise her legacy. Just like her, your consistent faithfulness is your legacy, and God is using it to embarrass every lie spoken against you. Chosen one, understand this. Private battles often lead to public victories. God delayed your vindication, not because He was punishing you, but because He was amplifying your testimony. You are a walking, breathing display of His faithfulness, His power, and His unstoppable favor. So ask yourself, would you rather have quick comfort or undeniable vindication? Would you rather have a small, private clearing of your name or a divine promotion so big that no one can ignore it? You chose silence. You chose endurance. And now, God is choosing to elevate you in a way that will echo for generations. Number 11. They didn't just touch you. They touched the God who sent you. Chosen one. Have you truly grasped the weight of your assignment? Do you realize that when they targeted you, they weren't merely attacking flesh and blood? They thought they were insulting just another human, someone easy to tear down, someone they could silence with rumors, manipulation, and covert sabotage. But what they underestimated, what they could never comprehend, is that you weren't walking this earth as a lone wanderer. You were sent. You are a divine dispatch, a living, breathing extension of heaven's agenda on earth. Isaiah 54:17 reminds us again, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. When they came for you, they didn't just aim at you, they aimed at the one who anointed you, who crowned you in secret before any public eyes ever saw your glow. You are God's investment, His chosen vessel, His beloved soldier on assignment. Think about Moses. When Pharaoh and his army pursued the Israelites to the Red Sea, they weren't merely chasing runaway slaves, they were chasing a divine mission. And in doing so, they waged war against God Himself. What happened? The waters closed in, swallowing the entire army, proving that divine protection cannot be breached by human force. They thought they could play mind games, destabilize your emotions, and fragment your peace. But chosen one, as Psalm 105:15 says, "Do not touch my anointed ones, do my prophets no harm." They violated a cosmic law the moment they plotted against you. They overstepped a sacred boundary they didn't even know existed. When they verbally assaulted you, when they spiritually attacked you, when they undermined you with sly remarks and secret plots, they unknowingly picked a fight with the very hand that holds the universe. Their strategies were never simply against you, they were a rebellion against heaven's blueprint. Remember when David faced Saul's relentless pursuit? Saul wasn't just after a young man, he was trying to sabotage God's chosen king. In the end, Saul's own sword became his demise. Have you ever considered that every attack against you is actually a mirror reflecting their own downfall? The consequences they now face, the sudden loss of opportunities, the closed doors, the evaporated influence, it isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's divine protocol. God is not a silent observer. He defends His investments with fierce loyalty and unmatched precision. Romans 12:19 declares, "Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord." You didn't have to pick up the sword. God was already sharpening His. Take Meghan Markle as an example. When she faced relentless attacks from media and insiders, many believed her reputation would crumble. Yet, in the end, the very platforms that tried to destroy her are now being held accountable for their deceit, and she continues to thrive, carrying her crown without apology. Chosen one. Understand this, you didn't have to fight back, because God never allows harm to His chosen to go unanswered. The collapse they're experiencing now is not about revenge, it's about divine protection and the preservation of your sacred calling. You are not simply a person they wronged, you are a divine force they underestimated. Ask yourself, chosen one, have you ever felt like they were touching something deeper than just your reputation or your emotions? That unease in your spirit wasn't paranoia, it was divine discernment. Now you see clearly. They didn't just touch you, they touched the God who sent you, and that is a battle no human can ever win. Number 12. God didn't just reveal their agendas, He reversed them. Chosen one. Have you ever been stunned by how detailed their plots were against you? The lies they spread, the curses they whispered, the alliances they built in secret, all orchestrated as if your downfall was a foregone conclusion. They moved with such confidence, certain that your collapse was inevitable. But what they failed to calculate was the God factor, the X factor, they could neither predict nor control. Genesis 50:20 tells us, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." They thought their curses would stick. that their schemes would break you. But instead, every attack became a seed for your next level. Their words were turned into wings, lifting you higher into rooms they will never enter. Think of Joseph again. Sold by his brothers out of envy and hatred, they planned to erase his dreams. But God flipped their plan, and Joseph became ruler over Egypt. The very one who saved his betrayers during famine. What if every plot against you is actually a piece of your throne being assembled? They spoke shame over you. But God turned that shame into a spotlight, so bright it revealed their hidden hearts. They tried to isolate you, thinking you'd wither alone. But God used that solitude to infuse you with a peace so deep, no chaos can now disturb it. Proverbs 26-27 once again confirms, whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Every trap they set was recalibrated by heaven into a stepping stone for you. The poison they sent to kill your spirit became the potion that strengthened your soul. Look at Oprah Winfrey's story. She was fired from her first television job and publicly humiliated. Yet what was meant to destroy her birthed a global empire that changed millions of lives. Your enemies thought they were closing doors, but God was opening gates they couldn't even see. The more they pressed, the more you rose. The more they whispered, the more your voice amplified. The more they cursed, the more blessings reigned over you. This isn't karma, it's divine reversal. They didn't just fail. Their curses are now catapulting you into spaces meant only for the favored. Romans 8:28 promise. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Your story isn't a survival tale. It's a story of divine reversal and radical promotion. When they look at you now, they can't comprehend it. They preyed on your weaknesses, but those weaknesses became your weapons. They prophesied your end, but now they watch you, crowned with the very ashes they thought would bury you. Think of Malala Yousafzai, shot for simply wanting an education. Her enemies thought they'd silence her forever. Instead, she became a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and a global voice for millions. What they meant for evil, God flipped for unstoppable good. Chosen one. Reflect. How many times did you think, this is it, I can't survive this one? Only to rise stronger each time. That wasn't luck. That was God reversing the agenda in real time, using your enemy's scripts to produce his masterpiece. So, stand boldly. The tables have turned, not because you fought harder, but because you stayed aligned with your assignment. You didn't need to fight dirty. You let God flip the script. And now, your life is a living sermon, echoing one eternal truth: what they meant for your destruction, God meant for your distinction. Number 13. Your pain was heaven's legal evidence. Chosen one. Have you ever sat alone in the quiet of the night, wondering why the tears wouldn't stop? Why did the heartbreak feel so heavy? Why did God seem silent when your spirit was screaming for relief? You might have thought you were simply enduring, just surviving the storm. But what if I told you that every tear you cried was collected as evidence in heaven's courtroom? What if I told you that your silent suffering wasn't weakness, but a spiritual testimony that was building a case so strong it could not be overturned? Psalm 56, 8 declares, you keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Every tear you shed wasn't lost. It became divine data, a record. a spiritual legal document that heaven was preparing to present against those who wronged you. Think of Nelson Mandela. For 27 years, he was imprisoned, humiliated, and physically broken. But behind those prison walls, every moment of endurance built a case so powerful that when he was released, the world had no choice but to recognize his authority. Mandela didn't retaliate with violence. His pain became the proof of his character and the condemnation of the system that oppressed him. Chosen one, your every decision to stay silent instead of defending yourself. Every moment you chose forgiveness over retaliation. Every time you walked away from a fight, you could have easily won. These were not moments of defeat. They were pieces of heavenly evidence. You were submitting your pain as an offering, as a statement to a higher judge who never overlooks any detail. Romans 12:19 tells us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." While they mocked you, heaven was compiling a case. They thought your silence meant they had won, but they didn't know you were allowing God to handle it. Your quietness was your most powerful weapon, not your weakness. Look at Malala Yousafzai, shot and silenced for demanding education. Her suffering became her loudest advocacy. The bullet meant to kill her voice, instead amplified it globally. Have you realized that your wounds might be the very proof that elevates your mission beyond what your comfort ever could? They believed they could destroy you without consequences. But what they didn't know is that your endurance was a testimony being written before the throne of heaven. You didn't beg for justice, you embodied it. You didn't fight to clear your name. Your obedience did that for you. Isaiah 7 promises. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. And instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. Every secret attack, every betrayal, every sleepless night, they became receipts. Sacred records, proving exactly who they were and affirming exactly who you are. Chosen one. Do you see why you had to endure in silence? Do you see why you couldn't retaliate? Why you couldn't explain yourself to everyone? Your suffering wasn't random. It was the foundation for your vindication. The verdict is out. And it's irreversible, guilty without appeal. Now, the sentence is unfolding publicly. Doors are closing for them. Peace has fled their lives. Relationships they thought were solid are crumbling like dry leaves. Look at Jesus on the cross. His silence before Pilate wasn't weakness, it was submission to divine justice. His suffering didn't end in defeat, but in global salvation. Your pain carries that same power, the power to transform suffering into a resurrection story. Chosen one. Your tears spoke louder than any words ever could. They were the ink that signed heaven's decree on your behalf. You didn't just endure, you testified. And now, heaven's ruling is being carried out, not quietly, but in front of every eye that doubted you. Number 14. God's justice was never loud, but it was lethal. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why you didn't feel the urge to scream your truth to the world? Why you didn't fight back or clap back when they laughed, mocked, and plotted against you, while they waited for you to explode, for you to stoop to their level? You chose to stay silent. And that silence wasn't passivity, it was a strategic trust in God's quiet, but lethal justice. Exodus 14:14 reminds us again, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." While they expected fireworks and drama from you, God was moving silently, like a storm gathering strength in the distance. By the time his justice arrived, it was too late for them to run or hide. They underestimated the potency of divine timing. Think of Harriet Tubman. She moved quietly, leading hundreds to freedom without fanfare. Her silent strength dismantled entire systems of oppression. While enemies bragged loudly about their power, she moved like a whisper, changing history forever. Like Harriet, your silence wasn't defeat. It was the unseen hand of God at work. They thought your pain was a sign of your downfall. They didn't realize that every wound was an entry point for God's justice to move. Your rebuilding happened in the shadows, away from applause. While they celebrated prematurely, now, the alliances they used to mock you are crumbling. The influence they flaunted is evaporating like morning mist under the sun. Psalm 37:13 says, "But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming." Your patience was a divine setup. While they expected to see you crawl back begging for mercy, they're now watching you rise with a glory they can't replicate, a favor they can't comprehend. Look at Tiger Woods after his personal scandal. The world counted him out, but he rebuilt quietly, away from the cameras. And when he returned to win the Masters in 2019, it was not just a victory, it was poetic justice. You are experiencing that same quiet rebuilding. They thought they saw your end, but they were only witnessing your divine recalibration. Now, chosen one, they are speechless. Their connections are failing them. Their schemes are backfiring. Their confidence is melting under the weight of consequences they never anticipated. This wasn't revenge, it was divine timing. Romans 8:31 affirms again, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" You didn't need to get loud because your victory is louder than any words you could have spoken. You shine in places they can't enter. You glow in rooms they can't infiltrate. Your silence was never empty. It was the echo of heaven's laughter. Think of Serena Williams. After countless attacks and humiliations, she chose to stay focused. Each win on the court silenced critics more profoundly than any social media rant ever could. You, chosen one, are living the same story. Your wins speak. Your glow testifies. Your rise silences every false accusation without a single word from your mouth. They thought you'd be forgotten. Instead, you've become unforgettable. They plotted your erasure. But God turned you into an eternal example. You didn't just survive, you transcended. You didn't just make it through, you rose beyond what they imagined possible. Chosen one. Remember, God's justice doesn't need to announce itself. It arrives like a midnight storm, unstoppable and absolute. You are the living evidence that heaven doesn't miss. Your quietness was not absence, it was alignment. And now, as you stand stronger, brighter, and unbreakable, they are left to face the ruins of their own making. Now they're the ones in the spotlight, unraveling under the crushing weight of their own schemes. And you, chosen one, you are rising quietly, powerfully, and without apology. Not because you sought revenge, but because divine justice never needs noise to be effective. It simply needs faith, patience, and unwavering alignment with the truth. This is your season. Your vindication isn't just real, it's radiant. It's visible to every eye that once doubted you and every mouth that once mocked you. Keep walking forward with your head held high, knowing that God's justice isn't on the way, It's already unfolding right before you. The fall of those who plotted against you isn't simply a tale of defeat for them. It's a living testimony to your resilience and a stark warning to anyone who dares to come against what heaven has ordained. Your endurance wasn't in vain. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It was the loudest echo of faith. Chosen one, stay strong. Stay focused. Let your life itself be the boldest declaration that nothing hidden remains hidden forever, and that God's truth always rises above every scheme and every lie. If this message ignited something deep in your spirit, if it reminded you of your divine covering and gave you the push to keep going, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button right now and join this unstoppable family of warriors rising in power, grounded in truth, and anchored in unshakable faith. Show some love by liking this video. Every like is a spark that keeps this flame burning and fuels the energy to continue bringing you these life-changing revelations. Drop a comment below and share your story or how this message spoke to your journey. You have no idea how your words might become the breakthrough someone else has been praying for. And if you feel led to sow a seed and support this mission through super thanks, please know that your generosity is deeply appreciated. But even if you choose not to give, you are still cherished beyond words. Your presence here, your engagement, your growth, that alone is a gift. Finally, share this message with someone battling their silent wars. Together, we rise. Together, we heal. Together, we break every chain and walk boldly into the destinies designed just for us. This is only the beginning. Chosen one, stay connected, stay empowered, and keep shining your light without apology or hesitation. You are unstoppable, and the world is about to see it in full glory. God bless you abundantly. May His protection cover you, His favor surround you, and His love overflow in every area of your life. Amen.